this is me basically. The way I've generated this is by drawing straight lines between each of those nodes and mapping onto what the bit of railway that closely follows the straight line, and but ties up all the nodes. Also, what I've done is think about a network that allows you to get from reasonably efficiently from every node to every other node directly with a direct service of some kind. So, yeah, people are saying North Wales should have been part of that, the existing network. You're right, it should have been. Yes, sorry, thank you. As I said, this is rough and ready. So do call me out in the chat for the things that like this is not science. It's crayons for us to experiment thoughtfully. Yes, you're right. However, I draw the line, it's going to be arbitrary. So, this is me thinking. This is essentially me recreating what in future you would emulate then with a high-speed rail network, right? So, going up to Glasgow, via Manchester, Liverpool, and Leeds, and this is what I think the best way to have built and then enhanced the network would have looked like. And I've always been irritated by the fact that the West Coast Main Line goes neither to Liverpool nor to Manchester. I've always thought that was really actually not very good at all. Because you might say, well, it allows you to, you can't choose between Liverpool and Manchester. Yeah, I think in this situation it would be better to actually have because the result is a very south-facing, London-facing network, because it means that you get the worst-case scenario for if you're in Manchester wanting to go north, the network isn't very good and isn't hugely well enhanced. So I thought, well, okay, what would the network have looked like if we had gone for straight line, kind of from London up to the West Midlands, and then from the West Midlands up to Scotland, up to Glasgow, and then tying Leeds and Manchester and Leeds and Liverpool up to Manchester. Well, one of the things I reckon is that strategically you would not have just retained the you would not have used and retained the West Coast Main Line coming out of Euston, which would have freed up to become a bit more of a commuter line. What you should have done is actually at this point used the Midland Main Line. So use the Midland Main Line up until you get to here. Where you get up to, I think this is Luton, isn't it? Yeah, this will be Luton. Luton, where there is a former bit of railway line that, in a reasonably straight line, connects you across. And by the way, there are lots of kinks that you get from this that from the 1950s onwards, BR could have, and in our wonderful alternative universe, should have worked out, let's say, work those kinks out, ease those kinks. But this bit of railway, which some nerd in the chat will be able to tell me exactly what this bit of railway was, is if I press people are getting upset at the idea. This isn't retroactive. So things like the Castlefield corridor shouldn't have been a problem because you'd have done other things to alleviate them, to kind of prioritise, deprioritise, blah blah blah. You'd have upgraded the corridor to make sure it was a mainline standard. You can see here this connection would then go from the Midland Main Line and then connect you across to the West Coast Main Line, then through Birmingham, and that would have been the prioritised route and should have been upgraded accordingly. So ideally, you'd have had 4 tracks for most of it, and certainly coming between London and Manchester, most of it would be 4-track. But actually, that means that you'd be having kind of your intercity hub would be at King's Cross St Pancras there. So fine, take note of that, everyone. Put that in your copybook. So if I switch off existing, what other bits? So the existing network, you can see I've tried to make the middle line is the network that still exists now. The thin bits of line are bits of railway that are now gone, and there are some thick bits which I've added that you need to facilitate. And actually, you don't need much to facilitate this, other than if you go into Manchester, you can see around Manchester there's quite a lot. And the reason I've put all this as being part of the route is in a bit more of a European style. Having a loop in the city means that you can have trains that don't do any turnbacks. Essentially, you avoid turnbacks. So, for example, if you're going from Liverpool to Glasgow, you'd go up through here, Castlefield corridor, and then up round the back. So you go through there and up round the back. And yes, Piccadilly would be substantially enhanced as a through station, not as a terminal station. So you'd have done other stuff here. You'd have done pretty substantial remodelling work to this. So you do that. Round you go. And then, people are saying the former Lenborough connector. Sarcasm. Thanks, Mike Osted. Very good. Why use the Midland mainline and not the West Coast mainline to exit London? You'll see momentarily when we get to the Tier B network. Yes, so the new bit you would need is if you were going from London to Leeds, you'd go through Piccadilly and then round what is now the Ordsal Cord and didn't exist, in the 50s, and then through Victoria and round the top to get. So this is just suggesting if you wanted to have a single efficient network, not West Coast, East Coast, but just a single network that you then plow cash into. This is one way you could do it and have kind of that single network. And then, as you say, you'd then spend money on building diversions and straightenings and potentially high speed kind of avoiding lines and stuff to kind of improve that. And likewise, you see, you take the Liverpool route, you'd not go over the top. You'd go through Warrington because, as we'll point out momentarily, a little bit of thought has gone into providing an optimization of these routes with the Tier B cities. So, oh, you can't see the mouse. Sorry. Yes. Thank you. Capture cursor. Done. Now you can see the mouse. Sorry about that. Thank you. Do shout. Michael C. And everyone who's shouting at me about the mouse. I've put the mouse up. You can see the mouse. So, yeah. So if I go in here, you can see you've got this kind of the loop, and this also. So there you go. So also what you have there is a need for a better route out of Manchester as well. It kind of shows part of the reason for this, by the way, is I think the number one reason this becomes interesting is less actually about this weird fictional alternative past history that I'm talking about. It's more showing how rubbish the British rail network is because of its lack of strategic oversight when it was built. Because some of the alignments are some of it makes no sense. There is no particularly good north-facing route from Manchester northwards. There are some strange strategic choices here there.